Boring history for sleep. Ancient sleep rituals. Around the world introduction. The night was quiet in Professor Eleanor Morgan's study. The soft glow of her desk lamp cast long shadows across shelves lined with ancient texts and weathered journals. Outside, a gentle rain tapped against the window, creating a soothing rhythm that matched the steady tick of the antique clock on her wall. Eleanor, a distinguished anthropologist specializing in historical sleep practices, was putting the finishing touches on her life's work, a comprehensive study of how humans across different civilizations and eras approached the universal necessity of sleep. Her eyes grew heavy as she leafed through her notes. There was something meditative about the subject matter itself, the countless ways humanity had sought rest throughout the ages. As the rain continued its gentle percussion, Eleanor leaned back in her chair and allowed her mind to wander through the centuries of sleep rituals she had documented. Perhaps there was no better way to appreciate the history of sleep than to let it lull one into slumber itself. Ancient Mesopotamia, the cradle of sleep. The earliest recorded sleep rituals can be traced back to ancient Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization nestled between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers in what is now modern-day Iraq. In this land of fertile plains and scorching summers, the Sumerians, Akkadians, and Babylonians developed some of the first documented approaches to sleep. Around 3500 BCE, Mesopotamians viewed sleep as a vulnerable state, a time when the soul could wander, and when one was susceptible to both divine messages and malevolent influences. They placed great importance on the interpretation of dreams, believing them to be communications from the gods or glimpses into possible futures. The dream interpretation text, Zikku, one of the oldest surviving dream manuals, contained hundreds of potential dream scenarios and their meanings, from mundane predictions about harvests to portents of great political change. The physical sleep environment in Mesopotamia was adapted to the climate. In the sweltering summers, many would sleep on flat rooftops to catch cooling breezes. Some wealthier citizens had special sleeping chambers with beds raised off the ground. These beds were typically simple wooden frames with woven reed mats or stuffed cushions. Headrests made of wood, stone, or ivory supported the neck rather than the entire head, a practice that would be seen across many ancient cultures. Before sleep, Mesopotamians often recited prayers to protective deities. The goddess Ishtar and the god Shamash were frequently invoked for safe passage through the night. Small protective amulets were sometimes placed under pillows or beds to ward off the demons believed to cause nightmares or sleep paralysis, which they called the pressing of Utukku. A common Mesopotamian bedtime ritual involved washing one's feet with water, an act of both practical hygiene and symbolic purification. After all, in a dusty environment where sandals were the common footwear, clean feet surely contributed to a more comfortable rest. This simple act marked a transition from the activities of the day to the peaceful realm of night. Lamp oils infused with calming herbs like hyssop and thyme were burned in sleeping quarters. The gentle, aromatic smoke was thought to please benevolent spirits while deterring harmful ones. These early aromatherapy practices were passed down through generations, evolving as they spread to other cultures and regions. For those suffering from insomnia or troubled sleep, Mesopotamian healers prescribed various remedies. Clay tablets from the library of Ashurbanipal record sleep-inducing concoctions made from poppy seeds, lettuce juice, and mandrake root mixed with beer or wine. These were among humanity's earliest documented sleep aids, revealing how long we have sought chemical assistance for elusive slumber. One particularly interesting Mesopotamian belief was that one's dreams could be influenced by what was placed under the pillow. Small clay figures inscribed with requests for prophetic dreams or protection from nightmares have been discovered in archaeological excavations. These humble objects represent some of the earliest tangible evidence of humanity's attempt to influence the quality and content of their sleep. The rhythm of sleep in Mesopotamia was closely tied to natural light. Without artificial illumination, beyond oil lamps and torches, most people retired shortly after sunset and arose with the dawn. This natural alignment with daylight cycles is something many modern sleep researchers believe we would do well to return to, as our circadian rhythms are similarly attuned to these ancient patterns, despite our modern ability to keep darkness at bay indefinitely. Ancient Egypt, sleep in the land of the pharaohs, in the shadow of the great pyramids. The ancient Egyptians developed an elaborate relationship with sleep and dreams between 3100 BCE and 30 BCE. For Egyptians, sleep represented a state closely connected to death, not in a fearful way, but as part of the natural cycle of regeneration and rebirth that was central to their cosmology. Egyptian bedrooms were designed with both practical and spiritual considerations in mind. In humble dwellings, sleeping areas might be simple reed mats rolled out on the ground or atop low platforms. In wealthy households and palaces, beds became more elaborate, wooden frames with woven cord or leather straps forming a supportive surface, topped with linen sheets and headrests. The distinctive Egyptian headrest, made of wood or alabaster and shaped like a curved stand to support the neck, may seem uncomfortable to modern sensibilities. However, these served multiple purposes. They kept the sleeper's elaborately styled hair intact, provided cooling airflow around the head in the hot climate, and had symbolic significance related to the sun's journey through the underworld during night hours. Before retiring for the night, Egyptians would often recite protective spells and prayers. Particularly popular were appeals to the goddess Hathor, who was associated with protection during sleep. Small statues of protective deities like Bes and Taweret were commonly placed in bedrooms, especially those of pregnant women and young children, who were considered particularly vulnerable during sleep. The Egyptians placed extraordinary importance on dreams, viewing them as messages from the divine realm. Dream interpretation was a specialized profession, with priests of certain temples dedicated to helping people understand the significance of their nocturnal visions. Some temples even had special sleep temples, or dream incubation chambers, where individuals would sleep in hopes of receiving healing or prophetic dreams from the gods. One of the most famous sleep temples was dedicated to Serapis in Memphis. Here, individuals suffering from illness or seeking guidance would undergo purification rituals before sleeping in the sacred space. Priests would interpret the resulting dreams to prescribe treatments or provide divine answers to pressing questions. These temples combined elements of what we would now consider healthcare, psychological counseling, and religious practice. For those struggling with sleep, Egyptians developed various remedies. Papyrus documents record sleep-inducing preparations made from plants like mandragora, poppy, and blue water lily. These were sometimes combined with honey and wine to create soothing nighttime drinks. The blue water lily, Nymphea caerulea, was particularly esteemed and appears frequently in Egyptian art and medicine. Modern analysis has confirmed it contains mild psychoactive compounds that could indeed promote relaxation and sleep. Egyptian bedtime routines often included cleaning rituals. The wealthy might bathe in pools scented with lotus flowers and other aromatics before bed. Those of more modest means would at minimum wash their hands and feet, considering it improper to bring the day's dust and impurities into the sleeping space. Oil lamps filled with castor oil would provide gentle illumination in the sleeping chamber. These would typically be extinguished before sleep, though some households kept a small light burning through the night, especially in rooms where children slept, to ward off dark spirits and provide reassurance. The concept of protecting sleep extended beyond the living. Egyptian burial practices included spells and inscriptions in tombs to ensure the deceased would sleep peacefully in the afterlife. Small pillows and headrests were included in burial goods, underscoring how important comfortable rest was considered, even in the eternal sleep of death. As the hot Egyptian day gave way to cooler evenings, many would sleep on rooftops or in courtyards during summer months. In winter, sleeping quarters moved indoors with thicker linens and occasionally even primitive heating systems in wealthier homes, consisting of small braziers placed in rooms before bedtime to take the chill from the air. Ancient Greece. Philosophical sleep-in. Ancient Greece, from approximately 800 BCE to 146 BCE, sleep was approached with the same philosophical rigor that characterized Greek thought in general. Sleep was personified as Hypnos, the winged god who brought the gift of rest to mortals and gods alike. His twin brother was Thanatos, death, reflecting the Greek understanding of sleep as death's gentler sibling, a temporary state of altered consciousness rather than permanent cessation. Greek homes typically featured designated sleeping areas, though not always separate bedrooms in the modern sense. The klein, a type of daybed or couch, served multiple functions. It was used for dining, socializing, and sleeping. Made of wood with cushions and coverings, these versatile pieces of furniture reflect the more fluid boundaries between activities in ancient Greek domestic life. At night, additional cushions and coverings would transform the klein into a comfortable sleeping surface. Before retiring, Greeks often performed libations to Hypnos and his mother Nyx, night, pouring small amounts of watered wine as offerings. These simple rituals marked the transition from day to night and requested safe passage through the vulnerable state of sleep. They might also pray to Morpheus, son of Hypnos and god of dreams, for pleasant dreams and restful slumber. Greek medical thought about sleep was remarkably sophisticated. Hippocrates, the father of Western medicine, wrote extensively about sleep's importance for health in the 5th century BCE. He observed the connection between sleep quality and overall well-being, recommending balanced sleep as essential to maintaining the proper harmony of the body's 4 humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Sleep and watchfulness, both of them, when immoderate, constitute disease. Hippocrates noted in his writings, perhaps the first documented medical advice, recommending balanced sleep hygiene. He prescribed various sleep aids for those suffering from insomnia, including gentle exercise, warm baths, and soothing foods like lettuce and barley water before bedtime. Aristotle later contributed to sleep theory in his work On Sleep and Sleeplessness, where he described sleep as a seizure of the primary sense organ, rendering it unable to actualize its powers. A rising of necessity, for the sake of preservation. This remarkably modern-sounding description recognized sleep as essential rather than merely convenient, a biological necessity rather than a luxury. Dream interpretation held special significance in Greek culture. While some dreams were considered meaningless, mere reflections of the day's events or physical discomforts, others were thought to be divinely inspired. The latter category could include prophetic visions, visitations from deceased loved ones, or divine guidance for healing. Professional dream interpreters, called onirokritai, helped people understand particularly significant or troubling dreams. Asclepius, the god of medicine, was closely associated with healing sleep. Temples dedicated to him, called Asclepieia, functioned somewhat like hospitals. Patients would undergo purification rituals before sleeping in a special area of the temple called the abaton. During this temple sleep, or incubation, Asclepius was believed to either visit the sick in their dreams to heal them directly, or to provide instruction for healing through dream symbols. The most famous Asclepieion was at Epidaurus, though others existed throughout the Greek world. Archaeological evidence from these sites includes thousands of votive offerings and inscriptions from grateful patients who believed they had been cured through this dream healing. The temples combined religious ritual, medical practice, and sleep therapy in a manner that anticipated some aspects of modern holistic medicine. For everyday sleep challenges, Greeks employed various natural remedies. Infusions of herbs such as valerian, chamomile, and lavender were commonly used to promote relaxation and sleep. Warm milk with honey was another traditional sleep aid. For cooling in summer, some Greeks slept with thin dampened cloths nearby that would provide gentle evaporative cooling in the Mediterranean heat. The Greeks also recognized the importance of sleep environment. Aristotle recommended moderate temperatures and quiet surroundings for optimal sleep. Beds were often positioned away from doors to minimize disruption from household activities, an early acknowledgement of sleep hygiene principles that modern science continues to affirm. Greek philosophical schools differed in their recommendations regarding sleep duration. The Spartan military culture famously promoted minimal sleep as part of their training regimen, while Epicureans advocated for sufficient rest as part of their pursuit of measured pleasure and absence of pain. Most Greek physicians recommended sleeping during the night hours and being awake during daylight, aligning with natural circadian rhythms. Ancient Rome, practical sleep. The Romans, practical in all aspects of life, applied this same pragmatism to their sleep habits from approximately 753 BCE to 476 CE. They adopted many Greek ideas about sleep, but implemented them with characteristic Roman efficiency and social stratification. Roman homes of the wealthy featured dedicated cubicula bedrooms, often designed with sleep quality in mind. These rooms typically had few or no windows, creating dark, quiet environments conducive to sleep. Some cubicula had built-in bed niches, while others contained movable wooden bed frames. The beds themselves featured woven rope or leather strap, supports topped with wool or feather mattresses, surprisingly comfortable by ancient standards. For the Roman elite, bedtime routines could be elaborate affairs. After the evening meal and perhaps a visit to public baths, a wealthy Roman might have slaves massage scented oils into their skin. Bedroom servants would prepare the cubiculum, adjusting coverings according to the season. Lightweight linen sheets for summer, wool blankets, and sometimes fur covers for winter. The majority of Romans, however, lived in crowded insulae, apartment buildings, where entire families might share a single room. In these more modest circumstances, sleep arrangements were simpler, straw or cloth pallets on the floor, perhaps raised on simple platforms. Privacy was minimal, and sleep was likely often disturbed by the close quarters and noise from neighbors and the streets below. Roman physicians like Galen built upon Greek medical traditions regarding sleep. Galen emphasized the connection between digestion and sleep quality, recommending light evening meals. His writings also discussed how different body temperaments might require different amounts of sleep, an early recognition of individual sleep needs that modern science has confirmed. For those suffering from insomnia, Roman doctors prescribed various remedies. Poppy-derived preparations, early forms of opium, were used cautiously for severe cases. Milder remedies included concoctions of lettuce, which contains a mild sedative compound called lactucarium. Wine mixed with herbs like lavender, chamomile, and valerian was another common sleep aid, as were warm baths before bed. Dream interpretation remained important in Roman culture, though it became more systematized. Artemidorus' Oneirocritica, the interpretation of dreams, written in the 2nd century CE, categorized dreams into different types and provided an extensive dream dictionary. This 5-volume work shows how seriously Romans took their dream lives, even as official religion became more formalized and less mystical. Sleep in the Roman military demonstrates the culture's practical approach. Roman soldiers were trained to sleep whenever the opportunity arose, a practice modern military forces still employ. Roman legionaries became adept at creating temporary but effective sleeping arrangements in the field, using their shields and cloaks to create shelter and primitive bedding. Military camps established clear sleeping schedules with designated watch rotations, ensuring security while maximizing rest for the fighting force. The Romans were also aware of sleep disorders. Medical texts describe conditions recognizable as insomnia, sleep apnea, and night terrors. Treatments varied from practical adjustments, like elevated headrests, for breathing difficulties to superstitious remedies, like sleeping with particular stones or herbs under the pillow to ward off nightmares. In the later Roman period, as Christianity spread, new elements entered sleep rituals. Evening prayers asking for divine protection through the night became common. Sleep began to be discussed in more moral terms, with sloth, excessive sleep, considered sinful and proper use of time, including appropriate rest, seen as virtuous. The Romans also gave us the concept of the siesta, though they called it meridiatio, a midday rest during the hottest hours. This practice was particularly important in Mediterranean climates, where afternoon heat made physical labor difficult. Businesses and even courts would close for several hours after midday, reopening in the later afternoon when temperatures began to fall. Ancient China. Harmonious sleep in ancient China, particularly during the Han Dynasty, 206 BCE, 220 CE. Sleep was understood within the philosophical framework of balancing yin and yang energies. Sleep represented the yin state, restful, dark, passive, complementing the yang state of wakefulness, activity, and light. Proper sleep was considered essential for maintaining this cosmic balance within the human body. Chinese homes were designed with consideration for sleep energy flow, According to Feng Shui principles, beds were positioned to avoid doors directly, facing them, preventing vital energy from escaping during vulnerable sleep hours. Ideally, the bed would be placed against a solid wall for stability and support, with the head pointing toward an auspicious direction, often southward. Traditional Chinese beds varied by region and social status, but commonly featured a wooden platform base that could be warmed from below in northern regions. The Kang bed stove was an ingenious heating system where the sleeping platform was constructed atop a network of flues connected to the cooking fire. The residual heat would warm the sleeping surface throughout the cold northern nights, creating a cozy sleeping environment even in frigid temperatures. In southern China, where summers were hot and humid, beds often included bamboo mats and cooling devices. Some featured intricate carved frames supporting mosquito netting, crucial for comfortable sleep in regions where insects were abundant. Ceramic or stone pillows, while seemingly uncomfortable to modern sensibilities, were popular because they remained cool in hot weather and maintained elaborate hairstyles intact. Before sleep, Chinese bedtime rituals might include drinking tea specially blended for night consumption. Herbs such as jujube, Chinese date, longan fruit, and wild jujube seeds, Xuan Zhao Ren, were commonly used in sleep-promoting preparations. These ingredients are still used in traditional Chinese medicine today, and modern research has confirmed their mild sedative properties. Meditation and breathing exercises were important pre-sleep practices, especially for scholars and those following Taoist or Buddhist traditions. The practice of counting breaths to clear the mind bears remarkable similarities to modern mindfulness techniques recommended by sleep specialists today. Chinese medicine recognized several sleep disorders and offered various treatments. The earliest Tobsesing Chinese medical text, the Yellow Emperor's classic of internal medicine, Huangdi Neijing, from around 200 BCE, described insomnia as an imbalance of heart energy. Treatments focused on restoring balance through acupuncture, herbal remedies, dietary adjustments, and lifestyle changes. Dream interpretation held great significance in Chinese culture. Dreams were considered potential communications from ancestors or portents of future events. The classic of dreams, Zhou Jie Meng, attributed to the Duke of Zhou but compiled during the Han Dynasty, provided extensive guidance on dream meanings. Some dreams were considered particularly auspicious, such as dreaming of dragons or certain numbers, while others required ritual cleansing or protective measures. The imperial court had specialized dream interpreters who would advise the emperor on the significance of royal dreams. Important state decisions might be influenced by dream omens, showing how seriously these nocturnal experiences were taken. Meanwhile, ordinary citizens might consult local scholars or religious practitioners about their significant dreams. Sleep timing in ancient China followed natural rhythms, but was also informed by the Chinese clock system, which divided the day into 12 two-hour periods, each associated with different organs and energy systems. The hours between 11 p.m. and 3 a.m. were considered especially important for restorative sleep, corresponding to liver and lung regeneration. This understanding aligns surprisingly well with modern chronobiology research on organ recovery during specific sleep phases. For children, sleep rituals included storytelling and gentle massage. Chinese mothers traditionally massaged their children's feet and legs before bedtime, a practice believed to promote growth and circulation while calming the child for sleep. Lullabies often contained educational elements alongside soothing melodies, reflecting the cultural emphasis on learning. Scholars and officials often maintained sleep diaries as part of their broader practice of self-cultivation. These diaries tracked sleep quality alongside dietary habits, emotional states, and physical symptoms. An early form of sleep logging that anticipated modern sleep tracking technologies by thousands of years. Ancient India. Spiritual sleeping. Ancient India, particularly during the Vedic period, 1500 BCE, 500 BCE, and beyond, sleep was understood within a sophisticated spiritual framework. According to Ayurveda, the traditional Indian system of medicine, sleep, nidra, was considered one of the three pillars of health, alongside food, ahara, and controlled sexual energy, brahmacharya. Indian medical texts, like the Karaka Samhita, compiled around 300 to 200 BCE, described sleep as essential for nourishing the body's dhatus, tissues, and maintaining the balance of the three doshas, vata, air, space, pitta, fire, water, and kapha, water, earth. Different constitutional types were believed to have different sleep needs, with kapha-dominant individuals requiring more sleep than vata types, who tended toward lighter, more interrupted sleep patterns. Traditional Indian homes often featured sleeping arrangements on low wooden platforms or cotton mattresses placed directly on the floor. In royal households, ornate wooden beds with intricate carvings might be used, while most ordinary citizens slept on simple mats. Pillows were typically filled with cotton, wool, or occasionally feathers, and varied in firmness according to individual preference and dosha type. Before sleep, many Indians practiced evening rituals rooted in spiritual traditions. Oil massage, abhyanga, was common, using warm sesame oil for vata types, coconut oil for pitta, and lighter oils for kapha constitutions. This practice was believed to calm the nervous system and draw energy downward from the head, promoting deeper sleep. Meditation before sleep was widely practiced, particularly among those following yogic traditions. Specific breathing techniques, pranayama, were recommended to calm the mind and prepare for rest. One popular technique was alternate nostril breathing, nadishodhana, believed to balance the body's energy channels and quiet mental chatter that might otherwise prevent sleep. The direction of sleep was considered important. Classical texts recommended sleeping with the head pointing eastward to promote refreshing sleep and mental clarity, or southward to promote longevity. Sleeping with the head pointing north was generally discouraged, as it was believed to adversely affect blood circulation due to the magnetic pull of the Earth's poles. Dream interpretation in ancient India was a sophisticated practice tied to religious and philosophical understandings. The Upanishads described different types of dreams and their significance. Some dreams were thought to be prophetic, others reflective of past karma, and still others simply the result of physical conditions or recent experiences. Particularly vivid or disturbing dreams might be discussed with spiritual advisors who would recommend specific rituals or remedies. For those suffering from sleep difficulties, Ayurvedic physicians prescribed various remedies. Warm milk with spices like nutmeg, cardamom, and saffron was a common sleep aid. Ashwagandha root, jatamansi, and brahmi were among the herbs used in sleep-promoting formulations. Modern research has confirmed the sedative properties of many of these traditional remedies. In yogic traditions, specific postures, asanas, were recommended before sleep to release physical tension and prepare the body for rest. Gentle, forward bends and twists were followed by relaxation poses. The practice of yoga nidra, or yogic sleep, developed as a guided meditation technique, inducing a state between wakefulness and sleep, allowing deep relaxation while maintaining awareness. Sleep was understood to occur in cycles and stages long before modern sleep science confirmed this fact. Ancient Indian texts described 4 states of consciousness: waking, jagrat, dreaming sleep, swapna, deep dreamless sleep, sushupti, and transcendental consciousness, turiya. These distinctions show a remarkably nuanced understanding of sleep architecture that anticipates modern scientific classifications. For children, Indian sleep rituals included gentle oil massage, softly sung lullabies, and storytelling. Many of these traditional stories contained moral lessons from epics like the Ramayana and Mahabharata, embedding cultural values even as they eased children into slumber. Seasonal adjustments to sleep were recommended based on Ayurvedic principles. During the hot season, summer, sleeping in cooler areas of the home using lightweight cotton coverings and slightly later bedtimes were advised. In cold seasons, earlier retirement with warmer coverings and warming foods before sleep helped maintain balanced rest throughout the year. Ancient Japan. Harmonious sleep in ancient Japan, particularly during the Heian period, 794–1185 CE, and the subsequent feudal era, sleep practices reflected the culture's emphasis on harmony with nature, simplicity, and clear social structures. The Japanese approach to sleep combined practical adaptations to the island nation's climate with aesthetic and philosophical elements that remain influential in Japanese sleep culture today. Traditional Japanese homes featured distinctive sleeping arrangements centered around the futon, a padded mattress placed directly on the tatami mat floors. Unlike the fixed Western bed, the futon was stored during the day, allowing rooms to serve multiple purposes. This practical use of space reflected broader Japanese aesthetic principles of flexibility and minimalism. The futon itself was typically stuffed with cotton batting and covered with indigo-dyed cotton fabric. Supporting the head was the distinctive Japanese pillow, makura, which evolved from earlier wooden or ceramic neck rests to the buckwheat-filled pillows that remain popular in Japan today. These firm pillows provided support while accommodating traditional Japanese hairstyles that were elaborate and time-consuming to arrange. Evening rituals in ancient Japan commonly included bathing, which served both practical and spiritual purposes. The practice of cleansing the body before sleep was considered important for both physical hygiene and symbolic purification. Hot baths, often infused with seasonal elements like yuzu citrus in winter or fresh herbs in summer, helped relax muscles and adjust body temperature for improved sleep. Many Japanese homes had designated areas for sleep that could be separated from the rest of the living space by sliding paper screens, shoji. These screens filtered light gently while providing privacy, creating defined sleep environments without permanent walls. Seasonal adjustments were made by changing the weight and material of futon coverings. Lightweight cotton for summer, heavier silk or brocade quilts for winter. Dream interpretation was an important practice in ancient Japan, influenced by both native Shinto beliefs and imported Buddhist concepts. Dreams were recorded in personal diaries, especially among the nobility and literary classes. The famous Pillow Book of Sei Shonagon, completed around 1002 CE, contains numerous references to dreams and their meanings, showing how intertwined dream life was with waking concerns. Certain dreams were considered particularly significant. Dreaming of Mount Fuji, for example, was thought to bring good fortune. Dreams of falling teeth or being pursued might require purification rituals to prevent misfortune. Professional dream interpreters served the imperial court and regional lords, providing guidance on the significance of particularly vivid or troubling dreams. Before sleep, many Japanese practiced meditation influenced by Zen Buddhist traditions. The concept of empty mind, mushin, clearing away distracting thoughts before sleep, bears remarkable similarity to modern mindfulness practices recommended for insomnia. Simple breathing techniques and focused attention were used to transition from the day's activities to the stillness of night. For those suffering from sleep difficulties, various herbal remedies were employed. Teas made from mulberry leaves, dried lotus seed, and certain mushroom varieties were commonly used as mild sedatives in some regions. Small sachets of dried herbs like lavender and chrysanthemum were placed near the pillow to promote restful sleep through their gentle fragrance. Sleep timing in ancient Japan was closely aligned with natural light. Without extensive artificial lighting, most people retired shortly after sunset and rose with the dawn. The night was divided into watches marked by the burning of incense sticks, calibrated to last specific lengths of time. This incense clock, kodoke, would often emit different fragrances as the night progressed, allowing people to track the passage of time, even in darkness. Children's sleep was approached with particular attention in Japanese culture. Lullabies, komori-uta, were sung in distinctive minor keys with gentle, swaying rhythms. Many traditional Japanese lullabies contain references to prosperity, health, and protection, embedding cultural values alongside their soothing melodies. Seasonal awareness deeply influenced Japanese sleep practices. The tradition of changing bedding seasonally continues today in the twice-yearly custom of airing futons outdoors. Different seasonal motifs appeared on bedding and sleepwear, connecting the sleeper to the natural world even during rest. For the samurai class, sleep discipline was considered part of martial training. Historical accounts describe various sleep techniques practiced by warriors, including the ability to wake instantly at the slightest disturbance and alert sleep methods, similar to modern power napping. One technique, nezumi bushi, or rat sleep, involved sleeping with one hand on a sword hilt, ready for immediate action if needed. Ancient Africa, communal sleep across the diverse cultures of ancient Africa, from the kingdoms of Nubia and Aksum to the civilizations along the Niger River and the forests of Central Africa. Sleep practices reflected the communal values and environmental adaptations unique to these regions. While it would be impossible to characterize all African sleep traditions under a single description, certain patterns emerged across multiple cultures. In many traditional African societies, sleep was often a more communal experience than in other parts of the ancient world. Extended families frequently shared sleeping spaces, with specific arrangements determined by age, gender, and social position. This communal approach provided practical benefits like shared warmth, protection, and efficient use of resources while reinforcing social bonds and kinship structures. Sleep surfaces varied widely depending on region, climate, and available materials. In parts of West Africa, raised platform beds made from wooden frames with woven rope or leather supports were common. In drier regions, Simple reed mats placed on packed earth floors served as sleeping surfaces in cooler highland areas, such as parts of Ethiopia and Kenya. Sleeping platforms might be topped with sheepskins or cattle hides for additional warmth and comfort. Before sleep, many African communities engaged in storytelling sessions. These weren't merely entertainment, but served important cultural functions, transmitting history, values, and practical knowledge across generations. Professional storytellers in many societies held respected positions, and their evening performances helped transition communities from day to night, while reinforcing shared identity through narrative. Protective practices for sleep were common across many African cultures. In regions where malaria and other insect-borne diseases were prevalent, smoke from specific woods or herbs might be used to repel mosquitoes before sleeping. Various communities developed early forms of mosquito control, such as positioning sleeping areas away from standing water or using certain plants known to repel insects. In many African spiritual traditions, ancestors were believed to communicate through dreams. Dream interpretation was thus an important practice, often the domain of specialized healers or elders. In some communities, significant dreams were shared publicly during morning gatherings, allowing collective interpretation and integration of dream guidance into community decisions. The Dogon people of Mali had particularly elaborate dream theories, believing that while the body rested, two of the soul's 8 components could travel, explaining the experience of dreaming. Their dream interpretation system connected individual dream experiences to broader cosmological understandings and could influence important life decisions from marriage to planting times. For those suffering from sleep difficulties, various remedies were employed across different African cultures. Herbal preparations using local plants were common. Valerian root in North Africa, passion flower in parts of East Africa, and various indigenous herbs throughout the continent. Many of these traditional remedies have since been studied by modern science and found to contain compounds with genuine sedative properties. Sleep timing across ancient Africa was generally aligned with natural light cycles, though with interesting variations. In particularly hot regions, the practice of biphasic sleep was common, sleeping during the intense midday heat and again during the night, with productive activity occurring in the cooler morning and evening hours. This pattern maximized energy use in challenging climates long before air conditioning made continuous daytime activity comfortable. In many pastoral communities, sleep schedules were coordinated with animal care needs. Among the Maasai of East Africa, for example, young warriors would sleep in shifts to guard cattle through the night, developing the ability to transition quickly between alertness and sleep, a skill valued both for practical survival and as a mark of discipline. Children's sleep in many African cultures was a community responsibility rather than solely the domain of biological parents. In the concept, often summarized as, "It takes a village to raise a child," infants and young children might be soothed to sleep by various community members. Special lullabies, many still sung today, used repetitive melodies and gentle rhythms to induce sleep while imparting cultural values and identity. The physical environment for sleep was often adapted to local conditions with remarkable ingenuity. In parts of North Africa, sleeping chambers were built partially underground to maintain cool temperatures. In tropical forests, raised sleeping platforms provided protection from ground moisture and insects. Desert dwellers might sleep on rooftops to catch cooling night breezes after the heat of the day. Across various African cultures, sleep and dream life were not considered entirely separate from waking consciousness, but rather part of a continuum of experience. This holistic approach to consciousness states anticipated modern neurological understandings that sleep is not simply the absence of wakefulness, but an active, complex neurological state essential for cognitive function and emotional regulation. Ancient America's celestial sleep. Among the great civilizations of the pre-Columbian Americas, the Maya, Aztec, Inca, and numerous other societies from the Arctic Circle to Tierra del Fuego, sleep practices were often integrated with sophisticated astronomical knowledge and specific cultural understandings of the cosmos. While diverse in their specific approaches, many of these civilizations shared certain elements in their relationship with sleep. The Maya civilization, which flourished in Central America from approximately 2000 BCE to 1600 CE, viewed sleep within their cyclical understanding of time and cosmos. With their remarkable astronomical knowledge, Maya sleep timing was often coordinated with celestial movements. Certain sleep periods were considered more auspicious than others, particularly those aligned with significant astronomical events like solstices and equinoxes. Maya homes typically featured sleeping areas on raised platforms, hammocks. One of the most significant contributions to world sleep culture originated in this region. Woven from tree bark or plant fibers, these ingenious sleeping surfaces provided comfort while keeping sleepers off the ground, away from insects and dampness. In the tropical environment, the gentle rocking motion of hammocks, now known to synchronize brain waves and facilitate sleep, made them particularly effective sleeping tools. For the Aztec civilization of central Mexico, 14th to early 16th centuries CE, sleep was understood within their complex religious framework. The goddess Tlazolteotl was associated with purification and sleep, and evening rituals often included prayers to her for protection during the vulnerable sleep state. Archaeological evidence suggests that Aztec sleeping areas were simple, but carefully arranged, with reed mats, petats, as the primary sleeping surface for most people. Aztec medical texts described various sleep disorders and their treatments. The Badianus manuscript, 1552 CE, one of the earliest medical texts from the Americas, includes remedies for insomnia using local plants, like passion flower, which modern research has confirmed contains compounds with sedative properties. The Aztec approach to medicine integrated physical symptoms with spiritual and psychological factors, creating a holistic approach to treating sleep difficulties. In the Andes, the Inca civilization, 13th century to 1572 CE, developed sleep practices adapted to the challenging mountain environment. Sleeping areas in Inca homes often featured built-in stone or adobe platforms covered with textiles and furs for insulation against the high-altitude cold. Some evidence suggests that homes were oriented to capture morning sunlight in sleeping areas, providing natural warmth as the day began. Across many indigenous North American cultures, sleep practices reflected deep connections to the natural world. Among plains tribes, teepees were designed with sophisticated ventilation systems that regulated temperature and air quality, creating optimal sleeping environments that could be adjusted seasonally. The teepee's circular design allowed families to sleep with feet toward the center fire for warmth, with specific positions assigned according to family role and status. Dream interpretation held particularly significant cultural importance. For many indigenous North American peoples, among tribes like the Iroquois, Lakota, and Ojibwe, dreams were understood as communications from the spirit world, providing guidance, healing, and sometimes prophecy. The practice of dream-seeking, intentionally incubating significant dreams through ceremonial preparations and focused intention before sleep, was widespread. The concept of the vision quest, found in various forms across many indigenous North American cultures, often involved regulated sleep patterns as part of spiritual practice. Individuals seeking visions might engage in sleep deprivation as one element of the ceremonial process, altering consciousness to facilitate spiritual experiences. These practices were carefully guided by elders with knowledge of both their benefits and risks. In Arctic regions, Inuit sleep practices adapted to extreme environmental conditions. During long winter nights, sleep might be divided into multiple periods rather than one consolidated block. Communal sleep in well-insulated ice houses, iglooit, provided crucial heat conservation. Specialized sleeping platforms raised sleepers. Above the coldest air at floor level, and animal skin bedding provided insulation beyond what any manufactured material of the time could offer. In tropical forest regions of South America, various cultures developed innovative sleep solutions for their challenging environment. Hammocks, also used in this region, were often treated with natural insect repellents derived from local plants. Some Amazonian communities constructed specialized sleeping huts with smoke vents positioned to direct insect-repelling smoke from smoldering herbs toward sleeping areas while allowing most actual smoke to escape. Many indigenous American cultures practiced forms of biphasic or polyphasic sleep with patterns of rest and activity that didn't necessarily conform to the consolidated nighttime sleep model common today. These flexible sleep patterns allowed adaptation to seasonal changes in light and temperature, as well as coordination with hunting, gathering, and ceremonial needs. Children's sleep was approached with particular attention in many indigenous American cultures. Among the Hopi and other Pueblo peoples, distinct lullabies conveyed cultural values while soothing children to sleep. Cradle boards, used by numerous tribes, provided secure, womb-like environments for infants while allowing mothers to keep babies close during daily activities and evening transitions to sleep. Across the diverse civilizations of the ancient Americas, sleep was generally understood as a state with its own significance, rather than merely the absence of wakefulness. This perspective recognized sleep as an active time for healing, spiritual connection, and the integration of experience, an understanding that aligns with modern scientific recognition of sleep's vital role in physical restoration and memory. Consolidation. Medieval Europe. Sacred sleep. In medieval Europe, spanning roughly from the 5th to the 15th centuries CE, sleep practices were shaped by Christian religious beliefs, feudal social structures, and practical adaptations to pre-industrial life. The medieval approach to sleep combined elements inherited from ancient Rome with new religious understandings and the practical realities of life without modern amenities. The medieval home's sleeping arrangements varied dramatically by social class. Among peasants, entire families typically shared a single room, often sleeping on straw-filled mattresses or simple pallets laid directly on the floor or on low wooden platforms. Multiple family members would share these sleeping surfaces, both for warmth and because space was limited. For nobility, greater privacy was possible. Castle chambers might feature elaborate curtain beds with frames reaching to the ceiling. These bed curtains served multiple functions, providing privacy retaining warmth and displaying wealth through expensive fabrics. The great bed was often among a noble household's most valuable possessions, mentioned specifically in wills and passed down through generations. Before sleep, religious rituals were paramount across all social classes. Evening prayers, compline, in monasteries, simpler devotions in laypeople's homes, marked the transition to night and requested divine protection during the vulnerable sleep state. Many would make the sign of the cross over their beds or sprinkle holy water as protection against both spiritual dangers and physical threats like fire or illness during the night. The medieval Christian church considerably shaped sleep patterns. Monastic communities divided the night into prayer periods, nocturnes, with monks rising for prayer at designated hours. This practice of segmented sleep, sleeping in two main periods divided by a wakeful interval, appears to have extended beyond monastery walls to the general population, though with less rigorous timing. Historical evidence from medieval writings suggests that many people would sleep for their first sleep shortly after dusk, wake for an hour or two around midnight, and then return to their second sleep until dawn. During the middle waking period, people might pray, reflect, discuss dreams with bed partners, or even visit neighbors. This pattern of segmented sleep has been documented across many pre-industrial societies and may align better with natural human sleep tendencies than our modern expectation of 8 consolidated hours. Dreams in medieval Europe were interpreted through a religious lens. They might be seen as divine communications, demonic temptations, or simply meaningless byproducts of digestion or recent experiences. Dream manuals circulated among the literate, providing interpretive frameworks heavily influenced by Christian symbolism, alongside older traditions inherited from Greek and Roman sources. For those suffering from sleep difficulties, various remedies were employed. Herbal preparations were common. Chamomile, lavender, valerian, and hops were widely used as mild sedatives, either consumed as teas or used in sachets placed near the pillow. Some of these herbs were associated with the Virgin Mary in Christian symbolism, adding a spiritual dimension to their practical use. The physical sleeping environment in medieval Europe was considerably different from our own. Without central heating, maintaining warmth was a primary concern, especially in northern regions. Beds might be warmed before use with heated stones, or metal warming pans filled with hot coals. People typically slept in nightclothes, often including nightcaps to retain heat from the head, contrary to the common misconception of medieval peoples sleeping in daytime clothing. Lighting also influenced sleep patterns. The expense of candles and lamp oil meant that artificial light was used sparingly. Most households would extinguish lights shortly after sunset, both for economy and fire safety. This practice naturally aligned sleep more closely with daylight cycles than is common in our electrically illuminated modern world. Sleep positions carried morale and health implications in medieval thinking. Sleeping on the back was sometimes associated with demonic influence and nightmares, a connection modern sleep science partially confirms through the relationship between supine sleeping and sleep paralysis. Side sleeping was generally recommended, with specific sides suggested for different health conditions based on medieval humoral theory. Children's sleep received particular attention in medieval child-rearing literature. Infants were typically swaddled tightly for sleep, believed to both protect them from cold and help their limbs grow straight. Cradles were designed to be rocked, with the soothing motion recognized as sleep-inducing long before modern research. confirmed its effects on brainwave patterns. Seasonal adjustments to sleep were pronounced in medieval life. Winter nights might see all members of a household sleeping in the same room for warmth, even among the wealthy who had multiple chambers. Summer offered more options, with some choosing to sleep outdoors on particularly hot nights. Bedding materials would be changed seasonally, with heavier coverings in winter and lighter linens in summer. Throughout medieval Europe, sleep remained less private and more communal than in modern Western culture. Travelers regularly shared beds in inns. Servants might sleep at the foot of their masters' beds, and the ritual of receiving important visitors while in bed, particularly for morning audiences, was common among the nobility. This distinctive approach to sleep as a sometimes social state represents one of the most significant differences between medieval and modern sleep culture. Renaissance and early modern period, scientific sleep. The Renaissance and early modern period, spanning roughly from the 15th to the 18th centuries, brought significant changes to understanding and practicing sleep across Europe and its colonies. This era saw the emergence of more scientific approaches to sleep, alongside lingering traditional beliefs, creating a fascinating transitional period in sleep history. Sleeping arrangements began to change with the emergence of dedicated bedrooms, becoming more common among the middle classes, not just the wealthy. The concept of the bedroom as a specialized space, rather than a multi-purpose room, gradually took hold, though complete privacy for sleep remained less universal than in modern times. Beds became more elaborate for those who could afford them, with four-poster designs reaching particular prominence in the 16th and 17th centuries. Mattress technology saw innovations during this period, while straw-filled mattresses remained common among poorer households. Those with means increasingly used mattresses stuffed with wool, cotton, or feathers. These were typically supported on rope or leather straps stretched across wooden frames. The origin of the phrase, "sleep tight," which referred to the need to regularly tighten these supports for comfortable sleep. Scientific and medical understanding of sleep advanced significantly during this period. The work of physicians like Thomas Willis, 1621–1675, began to establish more empirical approaches to understanding sleep physiology. Willis described the relationship between the brain and sleep, correctly identifying that sleep was controlled by specific parts of the brain, rather than being a whole-body state, or the result of humoral imbalances as previously believed. Sleep timing began to shift with technological developments. The increasing affordability of candles and later oil lamps allowed more people to remain active after sunset. The spread of mechanical clocks in public spaces and eventually in homes encouraged more standardized sleeping and waking times, less directly tied to sunlight. These changes represented the early stages of what historian A. Roger Ekirch has called the rationalization of sleep schedules that would accelerate in the Industrial Revolution. Evidence suggests that segmented sleep, the practice of sleeping in two main periods with a wakeful interval between, remained common throughout this period, but began to decline among urban populations by the late 17th century. Increased artificial lighting, the growing influence of clock time, and changing work patterns all contributed to the gradual shift toward the consolidated 8-hour sleep model that would become standard in industrialized societies. Sleep disorders received increasing medical attention during this period. Robert Burton's influential The Anatomy of Melancholy, 1621, included extensive discussion of sleep disturbances related to what we would now call depression and anxiety. Various forms of insomnia were described in medical literature, with treatments ranging from herbal preparations to elaborate routines intended to balance the body's systems, according to prevailing medical theories. Dream interpretation remained important, but became increasingly divided between popular traditions and more scientific approaches. Published dream dictionaries continued to circulate widely, while some physicians began suggesting that dreams might reveal psychological states rather than divine messages or prophetic visions. This period represented a transitional phase in understanding dreams, with older supernatural interpretations coexisting alongside newer psychological explanations. Caffeine entered European culture during this period, significantly affecting sleep patterns. Coffee, tea, and chocolate, all containing varying amounts of caffeine, became increasingly popular social beverages from the 16th century onward. These stimulants provided new ways to delay sleep and maintain alertness, contributing to the gradual shift away from sleep patterns closely aligned with natural light. Colonial encounters brought Europeans into contact with different sleep practices around the world, some of which were adopted and others are rejected. The hammock, encountered by Columbus in the Caribbean, was adapted for use on ships and gradually entered European households as a leisure item. The siesta tradition maintained its hold in southern Europe, while northern Europeans increasingly viewed midday sleep as indolent, reflecting both climate differences and changing attitudes toward time efficiency. Sleep environments became more controlled among those who could afford refinements. Bed curtains provided not just warmth and privacy, but increasingly served to block light as sleeping past dawn became more desirable for some social classes. Window coverings evolved to better control morning light, with early forms of blinds and more effective shutters becoming more common in prosperous homes. Children's sleep began to be approached differently, at least in theory, if not always in practice. John Locke's influential Some Thoughts Concerning Education, 1693, recommended that children sleep on hard lodging, such as straw mattresses rather than feather beds, believing this would help develop their physical constitution. The practice of swaddling infants for sleep began to decline among the educated classes, reflecting new ideas about child development and physical freedom. Nightwear became more specialized and common during this period. While many still slept in day undergarments or naked dedicated nightshirts, and later nightgowns became increasingly standard, particularly among the middle and upper classes. By the 18th century, nightcaps were widely used by both men and women, serving both practical warming functions and protecting elaborate hairstyles. Throughout this transitional period, sleep gradually became more regulated, privatized, and scientifically understood. Yet many older practices and beliefs persisted, creating a complex landscape of sleep culture that varied significantly by region, social class, and individual circumstance. The scientific revolution had begun to transform understanding of sleep, but the Industrial Revolution would bring even more dramatic changes to how humans experience this fundamental aspect of life. The modern world, technological sleep as Professor Eleanor Morgan's narrative came full circle. She reflected on how dramatically sleep practices had changed in the modern industrial and post-industrial world. From the Industrial Revolution to the digital age, humanity's relationship with sleep had undergone perhaps its most significant transformation since our prehistoric ancestors first gathered around fires for nightly protection. The Industrial Revolution fundamentally altered human sleep patterns. Factory schedules demanded standardized waking times, regardless of season or natural inclination. Shift work introduced the unprecedented expectation that many should labor through the traditional hours of darkness. Artificial lighting, first from gas lamps and then electric bulbs, extended waking hours far beyond sunset, permanently altering humanity's relationship with natural light-dark cycles. Sleeping space became increasingly privatized. The Victorian ideal of separate bedrooms for parents and children spread from the upper classes to become a housing standard by the early 20th century. Beds evolved into mass-produced items with standardized sizes, first with metal frames and later box springs. The introduction of the coil spring mattress in the late 19th century significantly improved sleep surface technology, offering greater comfort and support than earlier straw or feather options. Sleep science emerged as a formal discipline in the 20th century. The discovery of different sleep stages through electroencephalography, EEG, in the 1950s revealed that sleep was not a uniform state of unconsciousness but a complex neurological process with distinct phases. REM sleep, identified in 1953, was recognized as the primary period for dreaming, fundamentally changing our understanding of dream physiology. The pharmaceutical approach to sleep gained prominence in the modern era. While humans had always used various substances to induce sleep, the development of barbiturates in the early 20th century and later benzodiazepines provided more powerful interventions for sleep difficulties. These medications offered benefits for serious sleep disorders, but also created new challenges with dependence and side effects, reflecting the complex trade-offs of technological approaches to biological processes. Sleep disorders received increasing clinical attention. Conditions like sleep apnea, identified in the 1960s, came to be understood as serious health concerns rather than mere inconveniences. Sleep clinics and specialized physicians began treating a range of disorders, from insomnia to narcolepsy, with approaches combining behavioral interventions, environmental modifications, and, when necessary, medical treatments. Consumer sleep technology proliferated, especially in the late 20th and early 21st centuries. Memory foam, originally developed for NASA in the 1960s, revolutionized mattress design. Adjustable beds, specialized pillows, white noise machines, blackout curtains, and a host of other products promised better sleep through technological innovation. In the digital era, sleep tracking devices and apps attempted to quantify and optimize sleep, representing the latest chapter in humanity's long quest to understand and improve this fundamental biological process. Work and social expectations continued to evolve, often at odds with healthy sleep patterns. The 24/7 global economy, digital connectivity, and blurring boundaries between work and personal time created new challenges for maintaining regular sleep schedules. Despite mounting scientific evidence for sleep's crucial role in physical and mental health, cultural values in many societies continued to celebrate productivity and activity over rest and restoration. Yet alongside these challenges, a renewed appreciation for sleep's importance began to emerge. Sleep science revealed the crucial role of adequate rest in cognitive function, emotional regulation, immune response, and virtually every aspect of human health. This growing awareness gradually began to influence both individual choices and institutional policies, from later school start times to workplace napping facilities in some progressive organizations, as Eleanor's narrative approached the present day. She noted how contemporary sleep approaches often attempt to reconcile ancient wisdom with modern science. Mindfulness practices for sleep with roots in ancient meditation traditions gain scientific validation through neurological research. Traditional herbal remedies underwent rigorous study, confirming the efficacy of many substances humans had used for centuries. Even the simple wisdom of maintaining consistent sleep schedules and creating restful environments found support in contemporary chronobiology and sleep hygiene research. Conclusions as the rain continued its gentle rhythm against Professor Morgan's window. She closed her final notebook and leaned back in her chair. Her journey through the history of human sleep across civilizations had revealed both striking differences and remarkable continuities in how humans approach this universal necessity. From the dream temples of ancient Egypt to the sleep-tracking apps of today, humans had always sought to understand, improve, and sometimes control this mysterious third of our lives. The specific practices varied dramatically across cultures and eras, yet certain themes remained constant. The search for safety during vulnerable sleep hours, the desire for comfort that supported rather than disrupted rest, the attempt to interpret dreams and harness their insights, and the challenge of balancing sleep needs with social and economic demands. Perhaps most striking to Eleanor was how cyclical some patterns appeared. The consolidated 8-hour sleep model that seemed so natural to modern Westerners had been a relatively recent development, preceded by various segmented sleep patterns throughout much of history. Now, with flexible work arrangements and digital entertainment available at all hours, many were inadvertently returning to irregular sleep patterns, though without the natural light cues that had once regulated such flexibility. Similarly, the intense focus on individual sleep optimization through technology represented both innovation and return. Ancient cultures had developed sophisticated personal sleep rituals and environmental modifications long before sleep trackers and specialized mattresses appeared on the market. The modern wellness industry's rediscovery of meditation, breathing techniques, and herbal sleep aids often simply repackaged wisdom that had been preserved in various traditions for millennia. What emerged most clearly from Eleanor's research was that sleep was never merely a biological necessity. It was always a cultural practice infused with meaning. How we sleep, where we sleep, when we sleep, and with whom we sleep reflected our values, beliefs, technologies, and social structures. Sleep practices revealed as much about a civilization's worldview as its waking activities. As her own eyes grew heavy, Eleanor reflected that her work documenting these varied approaches to sleep across human history served a purpose beyond mere academic interest. In an era of unprecedented sleep disruption and disorder, the rich tapestry of historical and cross-cultural sleep practices offered valuable perspective and potential wisdom. Perhaps by understanding how our ancestors approached sleep, often with greater patience, flexibility, and attention to natural rhythms than modern societies typically allow, we might find our way back to more restful nights. With that thought, Professor Morgan finally surrendered to sleep's gentle pull, joining the billions of humans who had done so before her in the oldest and most universal of human experiences. Outside her window, the rain continued its soothing patter, a lullaby as ancient as humanity itself. The end.